We're going to do a quick audio test. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Board of Directors meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the NLS Media YouTube channel. All votes this evening, as in the past, will be roll call votes. And a reminder to all board members that you please state your name before you first or second a motion so it can be notified by the secretary. And now I will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. In your own way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary, please.
Mr. Disler?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Mr. Green, we see you, but
I'm here.
There you go. Thank you.
Here.
Ms. Heckman?
Okay.
Here.
Ms. Husak here? Mr. Keegan?
Here.
Mr. Kern?
Here.
Ms. Culp?
Here.
Ms. Martineau?
Here.
Mr. Fedorcha?
here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Public comments, as in the past and always will, is that anyone who would like to address the board on any item on the agenda, we will recognize you at that time. Anyone who would like to address the board for items that are not on the agenda, I will recognize you at the end of the meeting. I will now accept a motion to approve the minutes of the January 11th.
Bob Keegan, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Bob Kern, second.
Any questions, corrections, or additions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Disler?
Yes. I said yes.
You're muted, Mrs. Dusa.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Special board reports, Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit, Mrs. Huzak.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. On this evening's agenda tonight, we'll be voting on our general operating budget that will be that was submitted and should be in packets. There was a slight decrease to the Northern Lehigh School District based on that operating budget. And again, it is just the general operating budget. All of our special programs and other service fees that are separate to the individual students that we send to the IU is a separate fee. But if you do look at that budget, it is our operating budget. But again, stayed status quo and or have gone down for us over the last few years. On another level, we did have our audit passed with flying colors. All really great things said about the IU finance department and the business office there. So thank you to them for keeping where we need to be and continuing to use them for those services. That's all I have this evening, Mr. Fedorcha.
Thank you. Any questions from Mrs. Huzak? Okay, moving on then to Lehigh Career and Technical Institute. As Mrs. Huzak said, we have our budget online tonight for board approval. There is a slight increase to it, but basically we are in a 5-year plan as far as how we figure out the rates for the schools, depending on the enrollment. And good or bad news, I guess it is. I don't know which way you look at it, but good news for us. Our increase is there, but it's because we have more students. So that has a different impact. But to me, it's good news because we do have more students there. The other thing we have is Our school is running much like everyone else right now. We go hybrid one time and change as soon as things change. Nothing else has changed right now. We are looking towards our graduation and other things, but that's still up in the air also. I do have one sad note. We have hired an interim for one of our administrators. Our director of services had taken ill, and since that time has passed away. So we are in a loss and kind of mourning one of our own top administrators at this time. And it's a sad time for anything to be happening like that. And that's all I have to report. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Mrs. Heckman, legislative.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. Pennsylvania is slated to receive about $2.2 billion from the second stimulus package. We just found out the number that they would be receiving. A lot of that money goes to the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or the ESSER. They're calling it the ESSER 2 because we already got our ESSER 1, which is how we were funding some of the projects that we talked about at the last board meeting. So we will see what the trickle down is from that. President Biden's nominee for Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, who will be approved probably the end of this week or early next week, thinks that teachers should be at the front of the line for vaccinations. And that's something that he's pushing for. Now, obviously, we know that those choices are made right now at the state level. And in Pennsylvania, we are in phase 1 of the vaccine rollout, where education workers are in phase 1A, education workers are in phase 1B. And Pennsylvania hasn't said when phase 1B would begin, but we are, according to the state website, in what is considered the middle of phase 1A. So hopefully we'll have more information on that, and where, our employees can go if they choose to, pursue the vaccine. Hopefully that will be coming soon. Governor Wolf proposed his budget. It is an ambitious budget, as Mr. Lank's weekly update said on Friday. It's a $3 billion increase over last year, about an 11.5% increase in general. As we know, you can propose a budget and a lot of it gets passed, or you can propose a budget and almost none of what you want gets passed. So past the Senate and the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to go over a couple high points since this isn't actual law yet. And I'm sure it will change a lot. But some of the what I would consider exciting things that are included in this budget proposal. And I want to give another shout out to Mr. Lank for breaking this down in the weekly update for how it would impact us directly. For basic education, he is proposing a $1.3 billion investment in basic education funding. If it's proposed the way it's written, we could get, over $100,000 in the next budget. Special education, he wants a $200 million increase in special education funding. If that were approved, we would get an increase of about 18% over our current budget for special education, which is over $230,000. He wants $25 million for pre-K counts, $5 million supplemental for Head Start. A lot of things are in this proposed budget. One of the things that I think is the most exciting is, again, comprehensive charter school law reform. As we know, we need this desperately in Pennsylvania to help public schools afford to educate our own children, not, just charter schools. The tuition rates at charter schools are, they fluctuate. They're all different. There is not an established statewide cyber charter tuition rate. So that is something that is proposed in this budget that would really, really help us if there was really any reform there. There's a proposal for a minimum wage increase, a state minimum wage increase to $12 per hour. It's really a comprehensive, what I would consider an aggressive budget proposal. So we'll track it closely. I'm sure that things will change a lot, but I was excited to see things, happening in Harrisburg. So that's my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Very good report. Any questions or comments from Mrs. Hickman? Okay, seeing none, again, thank you very much. And we will then move on to the community college, Mr. Green.
Thank you, sir. Ditto on the budget. You have the LTRI-C budget in front of you this evening. Without going into a lot of details, because I'm going to blab about something else, I think our share goes down about $6,000, something to that effect. Not significant, but it's a couple bucks lower. But what I really wanted to talk about, and as you know, a few months ago, I alluded to the fact that LTRI-C had gone into a partnership with a very large company, but we were not at liberty to discuss that because the company wanted to put out the public relations notice on that. If you happen to see today's Morning Call newspaper, it finally was released. And the company that we partnered with is Amazon, who is increasing and expanding very, very rapidly. LTRI-C was chosen as one of 4 schools throughout the United States to receive their training. Basically, it's in robotics and some of those type things for their factory workers. We've had, I think, 98 students go through so far. And the plan for next year is to take on students and then every 12 weeks bring on another crew to the point where we'll have over 300 students going to the college next year. And I think it's important to note that this is not necessarily people from the Lehigh Valley. This is people from all over the United States that are going to be coming here. And they've been coming here. They've been staying at a motel. Amazon is providing transportation for them back to the college. Paying for their food, et cetera, and actually paying them a salary while they're taking it. So there's a lot of people lining up for it. The really big news is that, yes, there are currently 4 schools teaching the first year. I've heard through the grapevines that one of those 4 has been chosen to do year 2, and that is, in fact, LTRI-C. You say, well, so what? And I just want to make sure I get this number right. According to Amazon, the program is part of Amazon's larger Upskill 2025 initiative, a $700 million investment to provide skills for 100,000 employees over the next 5 years. LTRI-C is one of 4 for year 1, and so far the only one who's going to be doing 2 years, $700 million over 5 years. The opportunity is just amazing to do a lot of training for a lot of people there, which will help the college. It will help pay expenses. It will reduce our costs and do a whole lot of good things, I think, not only for the college, but for the community, et cetera. So I'm proud to announce that if you haven't heard it or didn't read about it. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. That is absolutely wonderful. And I'm really happy for us in the Valley and particularly for LTRI-C. Any questions for Mr. Green or comments? Okay, moving on. In your packet, you have the committee reports. Just a special note that we did not have our policy meeting and education meeting on Monday due to the weather. So we will not have minutes from that meeting. If there's anything else or any questions, we can address those at a different time. We will move on now to the student representative report, Mr. Williams or Mrs. Craddock.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fedorka. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all again. I hope everyone was able to stay safe during the last week's crazy snowstorm, and I hope we're all ready for the next one that's supposedly coming real soon. First on the report, this year's spring musical has begun their practices already. The musical this year will be called Nonsense and be about a group of nuns trying to raise money. It will be available virtually later in the spring, just like the fall play was earlier last semester. The artist of the month for January was Aubrey Pollard, so congratulations to her. The student council just started their food drive, and it was actually just started today, and it will run through March 5th. There are several boxes throughout the school this year, including one in the main lobbies, the cafeteria, the main entrance, and we have one upstairs. So all donations for that are greatly appreciated. Finally, for me, for this month's report, both Paige and I wanted to share a little bit about our experiences with the hybrid model that we are currently learning under. Personally, it has been a really strange senior year for obvious reasons. Throughout the year, I've only had between 1 and 2 classes actually on the campus, and even then I was only in school for 2 days a week. So it has been at sometimes very stressful to try to figure out my schedule for the day, or if I'm virtual or if I'm in person that day, and because it feels like it's changing constantly. But despite that, it has been helpful a lot of the time because I don't have to worry about actually being on the campus all the time. So it's allowed me to work more hours and spend more time working on my dual enrollment classes for LTRC. Also, now that we are actually, I'm only in school for a few days a week and only for a few blocks at that, it keeps me excited for when I'm actually in school with my classmates, which I never thought I would say, but here we are. So despite this being an unprecedented year with many ups and downs, I feel personally that I've been able to make the most of it. So now I'll pass it on to Paige to talk about her experiences.
Thanks, Aiden. I can agree. It's been like pretty crazy this year, and I do the hybrid model where I go in Thursday and Friday, which I know that's odd because my last name's Product, but it is what it is. I've also had a lot of ups and downs in my first semester. It was pretty stressful, but and it's been pretty hard to like motivate myself, especially like on the Mondays and Tuesdays where I'm sitting in my bed for like 6 hours. It gets a little hard, but my first semester I had Miss Sheckler's class, and she's my fourth block, and she's one of the sweetest teachers I've ever had, and she's just very understanding, and she really motivated me, especially on those days where I wasn't in school. So I just wanted to give a special thanks to her. And for my second semester, which we just started, it's been going pretty well. A lot of my teachers, they've been really nice and understanding with like my Wi-Fi not working, and it's just, for me, it's been pretty good so far. So that's my little report for the school. And then unfortunately, junior and senior prom have been canceled this year. In the case of regulations being lifted, as it is possible for the form of the event could be held on campus if like everything starts to clear up. Sales of the yearbook have already begun. This year, all purchasers of the yearbook will have a copy mailed to them to their homes. I don't have much to report for the winter sports. I do know that girls basketball are currently 1-1, and a lot of their games, along with the rest of the sports, have been postponed. Boys varsity, I know they have 1 loss. Again, I don't have a lot to report on them, and same for wrestling. I know that they're doing pretty well. I'm personally friends with a couple of them, and I know that they've been doing pretty good with their season. So I want to wish all the sports the best of luck, and I hope that they continue through all this chaos. And that concludes our report for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Any questions for our students? Anyone? Okay. Moving on. We will move on to the business manager's report, Mrs. Maltaris and Mrs. Franz.
Well, everybody stole our thunder. So the first 3 things on there are the LTRC, CLIU, and LCTI budgets. And as they said, they are on for approval this evening. And I'll turn it over to Rhonda.
I don't have a whole lot to add either. Michelle did an awesome job covering the budget. The only thing is the big stumbling block that they're facing right now is how they're going to fund this budget. They've discussed numerous things with raising the personal income tax as a possibility for people making over $84,000 a year. They feel that by doing that, 76% of people would see a reduction in their personal income tax. As far as the charter school goes, the $9,500 may seem like a lot until you compare to the fact that according to the way they do the calculation now, we are currently paying over $13,000 a year. So that would be a huge savings for Northern Lehigh. Other than that, We just got to wait and see what happens. A lot of people in the House and Senate feel it's unsustainable. So we're just going to have to see how it shakes out and what kind of changes they make to it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for them? For either Mrs. Molitaris or Mrs. Franz? Anyone? Okay, thank you again. Moving on, Assistant Superintendent's report, Dr. Stoker.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. During the 1920 school year, the federal government issued both an accountability and a testing waiver due to the pandemic. To date, there has been neither issued for the 2021 school year, which is concerning to educators. Recently, several professional organizations have joined forces to request at least an accountability waiver so that test scores acquired during the school year do not negatively impact school districts, as they may not be valid, reliable, equitable, or fair. Northern Lehigh School District will be writing a letter of support to Senator Pat Brown and Representative Zach Mako to advocate for this waiver from the federal government. So we just wanted to make everyone aware that we are looking to support that and advocate for our students and our educators. Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker. Very good. Any questions for Dr. Stoker? Moving on to our superintendent's report, Mr. Link. Mr.
You're
Link.
muted, Mr. Link.
Since last March. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. I'd like to point out that two of the two groups within our employees, last week was their National Week recognition and appreciation. The first group was the school counselors. It was School Counselors Appreciation Week. And again, I would just like to publicly thank and recognize our 5 school counselors within the school district for the work that they do really for all students and their families every school year. But in particular, the last, this past semester and almost 3 quarters at this point, they're constantly going above and beyond to make connections with our students when sometimes making connections is difficult. So again, I thank them for their work and their dedication to our students and to their families and our community. Next, I'd also like to thank another group that has certainly gone above and beyond, not only this school year, but really every school year. This school year, a spotlight has been placed on them for the work that they're doing, and that's our Food Services Department work group, led by Mrs. Bonnick, who's with us here this evening. That group is has become one of the most flexible problem-solving type of groups that I've had the privilege to work with, between snow days and okay, we're in a hybrid model this week, or we have to go fully remote, but we still need to have food available to children. They've just figured it out, sometimes with less than 24 hours notice. So I'd like to say, a big congratulations to that group on everything that they've pulled off so far, and also to thank them for the work that they're doing, in particular this year, but really every year. And congratulations to you as well, Mrs. Bonnick, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Velocity. He's actually going to share out, this part of my superintendent's report. I'd like to kind of spotlight community members that in some way, either make some sort of donation of time or service, or in some cases money to the school district to support certain initiatives or students. We've had that happen again recently at the high school level, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Velocity to share out some information on that.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln. Good evening, everyone. Christine Quattrocchi works for Johnson Controls in Allentown. They were looking to make some donations to some local schools. Well, Christine is not only a parent, but she is also our assistant cheering coach, and she's always looking for ways to help out our students in our community. So she naturally thought of us, Northern Lehigh High School. So she took the time out to load up her SUV with 11,400 nitrile gloves. That's 114 boxes of 100 and 40 gallons of 80% alcohol hand sanitizer with pumps. That's 41 gallon bottles, and dropped them off at the high school on Tuesday, January 19th. So we'd like to really thank her and acknowledge her for her thoughts of us and her generosity, and thanks to Johnson Controls. And recently, Mr. and Mrs. Moore of Slatington made a donation of multiple DJ lighting and structural apparatus to our theater department on behalf of their son, Jesse Weiner, who graduated in 2003 from Northern Lehigh High School. Mr. Shuey and I have some things to do tomorrow to look through all that equipment and see what can be utilized. So it was quite a haul. I shared some pictures with Mr. Link, and I'm sure he'll share them with the board at a later time. But if you can't wait for that, I'll probably be posting that on Twitter by 9 o'clock tonight. Thank you, Mr. Link.
Thank you, Mr. Velocity, and thank you to both the Quattrocki family and also the Moyer family for the donations. Again, we appreciate your support. Next, I'd like to, the last school board meeting, I shared some information on Miss Ellen Youngster, one of our teachers that has recently retired. And I'd like to just kind of go back and highlight some of those and then kind of share out what selections she made kind of to be honored by the school district, which she certainly deserves. So Ellen Youngster was hired full-time in September 1995 as a special education teacher at the junior and senior high schools. She served as a temporary vacancy replacement teacher for the district before 1995. She obtained her bachelor's degree in special education and elementary education from Kutztown State College in 1982. Ms. Youngster served in various extracurricular roles as class advisor, substitute detention, and Saturday detention monitor, student council advisor. Ms. Youngster was an excellent teacher who met the individual needs of each child as she developed their special talents and interests. Ms. Youngster touched the lives of, at this point, thousands of Northern Lehigh students over the past 27 and a half school years. That's remarkable. She truly was a gift to our students and staff. She will be dearly missed. Ms. Youngster retired from the district officially on January 25th, 2021, again, after 27 and a half years of service. It's my sincere hope, Ellen, and I believe you're watching it tonight. I hope you are, that your retirement years bring you as much joy and fulfillment as you have brought to our students here. On behalf of the Board of Education and the school district, in the near future, you will be receiving an engraved apple as a token of our appreciation for all of you've done for the staff and students and our community. And again, best wishes to you, Ellen. I hope to see you around, and I know at one point you had said maybe you would be back to volunteer, and we certainly encourage that. But again, I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Next, we actually have another donation, which we did not get to recognize closer to the end of the winter break. So we're going to do that now. And for this donation, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Schneiderite, as this benefited directly some people at Peters Elementary School. So Mr. Schneiderite.
Good evening, Mr. Link, and good evening, everyone. Just to make you aware, as we neared the Christmas holiday, we were approached by an anonymous donor who wanted to provide a full Christmas for a family in need. Our Peters Elementary School counselor, Mrs. Cromer, and Mrs. Cromer, happy National School Counselors Appreciation Week to you. She worked with the donor and a local family to coordinate this donation. And right before the holiday, Mrs. Cromer and I met the donor outside of Peters Elementary, and we unloaded an entire minivan worth of gifts and food. It took us literally 3 mini truck worth of traveling in and out to get all of the gifts. You wouldn't believe it. The gifts were for both children and the adults, and the food was enough for an entire Christmas dinner and more. I believe there was an entire baked ham there. Although the donor chose to remain anonymous, I don't think that the act should remain anonymous, and I wanted to bring it to the Board of Education's attention for recognition tonight. And thank you to our anonymous donor for filling us all with the holiday spirit.
Thank you, Mr. Schneiderite. And again, a thank you to the anonymous donor family. Next, I'd like to share out that recently we had surveyed the community and, well, actually the parents and guardians of our students, as well as all of our employees, about some of their thoughts as we kind of move into the spring semester. And I can share that on the parent guardian survey, we received 706 responses, which is less than half, a little less than half, 50% of our student enrollment within the district. And on the employee side, we received 190, bear with me here one second. We received 198 responses, and we have about 240 or so employees within the school district. So this week, the administrative team will start to kind of data mine all those responses, and really what we're looking for is to be able to run some projections on one, if at some point we are able to start bringing more children back into the district more frequently, what may social distancing look like on the buses, within the classrooms, within the cafeterias, and then be able to share that information out again to parents and just say, okay, this is what it would actually look like now that we have some numbers. Are you still of the same mindset? But then also to have some conversations with our employees about if this were to occur, kind of what would your expectations be through a safety and education lens. So right now we're simply at the point of we're going to start reviewing the data that we have received. Other things that we continue to monitor are this week something new started where the Department of Health through the Department of Education is going to start sharing out weekly updates on the vaccine. As we all know, there's an extremely high demand for the vaccine, but the supply is simply not meeting the demand at this time. Certainly not locally, not across the state, or my understanding is across the nation. So we're hopeful that there's some progress made there to be able to have, in particular, our employees vaccinated as quickly as possible if they choose to participate. We can continue to work with St. Luke's University Health Network, Lehigh Valley Health Network, and most recently we've been in communication with Bechtol's Pharmacy here in Slatington about some ways to get the vaccine to education workers, which are in Group 1B, as efficiently as possible. So hopefully these weekly updates coming down from the Department of Education and the Department of Health will help guide us in guiding our employees. And that concludes my report for this evening, Mr. Fedorcha.
Thank you, Mr. Link. Any questions for Mr. Link?
Mr. Fedorcha, it's Mrs. Husak. Mr.
Yes.
Link, just curious, when or are you able to share some of those survey results? Just curious what's out there. Are parents looking for their kids to come back? Teachers looking to come back? Are you at a point to share that, or is that going to be something down the road to share?
It will be shared down the road, not this evening, because we haven't had an opportunity to look at it together as an administrative team. But what I would say is the next natural time to share that out would be probably the March Policy and Education Committee meeting.
Okay. So until then, is the plan still to continue status quo within the hybrid schedule?
That would be my recommendation, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you again, Mr. Link. Okay, moving on. We did have an executive session this evening for personnel, negotiations, and legal items. Moving on to personnel. I will accept now a motion to approve the personnel items A through D. A through D. Do I have a motion to approve?
Matt Green, so moves.
Robin Dissler, second.
Any questions or comments? All those, I'm sorry, roll call, please. This is who that.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Dissler?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Moving on, policy. I will accept a motion to approve the policy items A and B. Do I have a motion to do so?
Bob Keegan, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Mrs. Culp, second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I do not see anything under conferences. Are there any conferences items? Okay. Moving on then to curriculum and instruction, I will now accept a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction items A and B. A and B. Do I have a motion
This is
to do?
Michelle Martineau. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Green will second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Moving on then, I will accept a motion to approve the financial items A through H. A through H. Do I have a motion to do so?
Mr. Green will so move.
Do I have a
Second,
second?
Husak?
Thank you. Any questions on the finance items? That also includes the budgets of our other schools. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you very much. Is there anything legal? Correspondence? For information, there are the minutes of the three institutions. And now I will look to you, Mr. Hill, for any outside information from anyone? Questions?
We do have one question that just came in from Pauline Grady. The CDC is presenting their new guidelines this week that clearly states it's safe for the kids to go back to school. Or are we going to be following those guidelines, or are we waiting for March?
We will review the guidelines when they're released in their entirety, and we also have been taking our guidance from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So yes.
And Mr. Fedorcha, that is the only question we have right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill. Okay, then we are at that point. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, Mr. Fedorcha, I just wanted to say something to Mr. Kern and Mr. Geis, both of whom I have spent hours and hours with in gyms over the year. The District 11 wrestling champions are over because one team applied in AA and one in AAA, so they're not even having a competition this year. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it's I guess it's just a sign of where we're at. And I just wanted to say that while both guys were present. So
It's a sad state of affairs, Matt, for sure. And you know, a lot of things I fear are going to happen with the progression of the individual wrestling side of things, districts, regionals, super regionals, and eventually states. You know, the sad part is if one participant of a team happens to contract COVID, it would basically eliminate every other wrestler from that team and going further in competition. So it's a unique situation, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but somewhere in the state, I have a feeling is going to, and it's really going to impact a lot of kids. Not to mention, if a kid contracted during a tournament, everybody that he came in contact with in that weight class during that tournament would also have to be eliminated as well. I mean, and they're looking at a 20-day now gestation period where you're quarantined. So it's sad.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Green, for your comments. Anyone else? If not, I will now accept a motion to adjourn.
Bob
Anybody
Keegan, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Mrs. Coleman.
Second.
Mr. Huzak, roll call, please. And it's interesting here. I get confused sometimes because at the vocational school, LCTI, we do not do roll call, except last month I did roll call because I'm so used to it. And when we have 21 board members, I added an hour to our meeting. Mr. Huzak, go ahead.
Aye.
Mr. Kirk? So you
I'm
want me
sorry,
to
you heard me? Yes.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Ms. Heckman?
Yep.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Stay well and stay safe, and we'll see you again next month.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.